Howdy there, youngins. Silver Mongoose here, back again with another episode of Gaming Favorites for You. This sounds very, very weird to say. It's been a long time since I've said howdy there, youngins, to anybody. And many of you aren't youngins anymore. On the last video I posted, just a little throwing out the idea of doing this, and I had some people commenting saying they've been, listening to my podcasts and watching my videos for like over a decade. So it's very weird to be back. But that video had a lot of positive comments and reception, and so I thought that I'd give this a shot and do another episode of Gaming Favorites. There's no promises on this being a continuing series or doing other videos or anything. This is just something I'm throwing out there. See how it goes, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if we do end up continuing it, I will try to mix it up with more guests. Some guests we've had before, some new guests, potentially some old gamer YouTubers from back in the day, and so just as a reminder of what Gaming Favorites is, it is a podcast is what you'd call it, though I put it up on YouTube, where I talk with a guest or guests about something that they love in video games, and they don't have to necessarily be experts in it, they just have to enjoy it. And it can be something like, in previous videos we've done one on the GameCube, one on Pokemon, one on video game music, on difficult games, on Final Fantasy games. So it's kind of topics like that. It could be a genre or a specific aspect of games or a company, and we try to keep it pretty casual. We try to keep it PG, and basically just have some fun. And I just wanted to say again before we start, I appreciate all the positivity that has been sent my way, and I hope you enjoy this. The other thing is that I might end up breaking up this video a little bit into smaller chunks, so it's easier to consume, because I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but I'll try not to upload them too far apart from one another, so you can listen to one right after the other. So, bringing it back, I think we are going to discuss the Resident Evil series. I thought it was a fun idea, and it's a thing that a lot of people are familiar with. And at least at this recording, it is topical due to Halloween coming up. And the guest that I have coming back here is a returning guest from a number of episodes. He might be the one who's been on here the most, but I haven't counted. And I'm not sure even what your handle is these days, so I'm going to let you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then maybe I think what I'm going to start doing in these videos is have the guests just for like 30 seconds talk about generally like their gaming experience, like the first system you played on, like roughly how old you were, and then like 30 seconds so people just kind of have an idea of where you're from. So take it away.
I'm taking it away. What's up? I'm well, these days I don't even have a handle because I don't do stuff on YouTube that much anymore. But it's your boy ZeldaGameGod. We're gonna bring the oldies back.
Yeah.
So Resident Evil. Like you want me to go into Resident Evil where I was my first Resident Evil experience, or games in general?
I think just in general, like just like 30 seconds, like I like. If I say it, okay, I'll do myself first, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can see people. We thought about this a lot. This is very well planned.
This is professional and very, very tightly done.
Yeah. So myself, I started playing video games like, I don't know exactly how old I was, but I was probably around 5, and I was playing like the old Nintendos, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. And my parents got one used with like a bunch of games, and then from there I bought myself a Genesis, and then I was a Sega kid for a while, and then from there on, like generally the trend was I would buy a Nintendo system first in the generation, and then usually when the generation was like probably halfway through, then I would start to pick up the other systems. And I like to play a lot of like old random stuff too, like the Magnavox Odyssey 2 and the Sega Saturn, and sort of random systems that aren't too popular as well. That's a lot of fun for me. And in terms of like PC gaming, like a lot of people in the 90s, PC gaming was a different world because it was such a huge step up from the systems you had, right? Like playing the Super Nintendo and then playing like something on your computer was like an insane leap. So I played a lot of PC games and emulators and stuff back in the day too, and now I kind of stray away from that because it's a bit expensive to keep up with. I've only had like 2 computers that have been mine in like my entire life. So I basically run my laptops into the ground and then I get a new one. So that was longer than 30 seconds, but that's kind of the general idea.
Okay. Well, man. Dude, the oldest memory I have playing of gaming stuff was, I think I must have been like 3 watching my dad play Zelda on the NES. And somehow I just accumulated the NES, the SNES, and the Nintendo 64. And I became like a total Nintendo boy pretty much my whole life. Later kind of got more into PlayStation as well. Funnily enough, I've never actually owned an Xbox console ever. But yeah, I'm also a pretty big PC gamer. Even though I've been running the same system for like the past 10 years with some upgrades here and there. PC games are awesome. But I always love my Nintendo games. Of course, ZeldaGameGod, obviously. But
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I was always pretty big into Nintendo. My favorite console was always the GameCube, which is real fun now if you want to collect for it because it's so expensive. So but yeah, that's my 30-second gaming life, Nintendo fanboy.
Yeah, and what's funny is that you did at the first video we recorded together for gaming favorites was on Zelda, and you did mention that you saw your dad playing Zelda on the NES.
Oh, did I really?
You were 3.
See, that's how you know I'm not making it up.
But what's kind of crazy is that was in 2011, so that was like almost 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, no,
which is like so nuts. And what's funny too is like people might get the impression that like, oh yeah, like you guys are like bestest of buds, but like I think the last time we well, no, I think the last time we actually talked was during the last video we recorded, which was in 2017. So
man, was it that recent? Oh yeah, it was because it was on Breath of the Wild. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was on Breath of the Wild with you.
That feels
and,
so long ago.
Yeah, but anyways, I said I was gonna keep things on track. We're already off track, but yeah. So I just thought it was worth mentioning that video was like 10 years old. it's crazy. Like it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Resident Evil, the series as a whole. I think what we're gonna do is talk about them in release order. I think that might make the most sense. And yeah, just see where it takes us. There's no expectations here.
Oh, thank God.
And yeah, so I could start.
Please do.
I got into the Resident Evil series in high school, I think, and I was never one to really like the flavor of PlayStation games, like a lot of rendered backgrounds, a lot of, in my opinion, like chunky graphics and like weird controls, and they try to be like adult and cinematic. Like I'm thinking of things like, for example, Metal Gear Solid, like that kind of stuff. Like in my mind, like that was kind of like what PlayStation was about, and a lot of single player experiences as well. And I come from a big family, so like multiplayer was really important. But I had a girlfriend at the time who was like really into horror games, but she was too afraid to play them.
That's a problem.
Yeah, and also like a lot of horror games from back in the day, which we're going to get into, have non-intuitive gameplay choices and controls. So like for someone who's like already afraid of playing Resident Evil, and then you go and you try to play Resident Evil and you just have like these tank controls, which are not it's not like playing like a 3D platformer or something where
not very
you
intuitive.
Like you have more control. So I started playing them like begrudgingly to just like spend time with her. And then I think the first one we actually played was the I think it was the remake of Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube, which we'll talk about when we get to there.
Yeah.
But I think later on we did talk about we did play like the PlayStation version, the one of the various iterations of the PlayStation version.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
And yeah, that's kind of like how I got into it. So then we basically just like played them as they came out, like a few years later actually, because like I'd like to get games in there cheaper. And almost all the Resident Evil games I played on GameCube, all those re-releases, because I had a GameCube, and most of them were like greatest hits or player's choice or whatever they're called, so they like weren't very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember getting Resident Evil 0 like for like I think $10 at Walmart or something. Like it wasn't a big commitment to get into.
Yeah.
And it was like a nice way for us to like spend time together. So that's kind of how I got into the series. How about yourself?
Well, man, when I was a kid, dude, I was such a little scaredy boy. Like, not even like scaredy boy. I was squeamish, right? I didn't like violence. I was like the annoying kid who always like, can we turn the blood off? Stuff like that in games sometimes, which is like crazy. But I remember one Christmas, I think my dad got me Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, and like I got it and I was like scared. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can play this. And man, I remember my friend was playing at the time, and I was kind of just like, watching, kind of like shielding my eyes because like I don't want to see any like gross stuff. But because I like in the beginning of the game, there's like a chainsaw guy, right? And like
dude, right near the beginning.
Yeah, it's
I'd say an hour in at most.
Not even, dude. Like 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, you're like going hardcore. And man, I like decapitation was a big thing for me. I thought it was so gross. But I kind of powered through that while watching him play, and honestly, I just fell in love with Resident Evil 4. I would literally sit there when I was a kid and like I'd play through the whole game, and then just like as soon as I was done, I just start up a new file and just play through it all again. I probably played the game in total like 10 times, just over and over and over again. It was crazy. And then after a while, I hadn't actually got into like I mean, after 4, I played, 5 came out, I played that, and 6 came out, and I played that. But I hadn't really, like, gone back and played the old ones until, like, surprisingly recently. It was a few years ago. I decided, you know what, like, I'm such a big fan of Silent Hill and stuff now, but I've never sat down and, like, played all the Resident Evil games. So I literally played, like, I started with 1 remake on the PC, which is phenomenal, and just went through 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, and 0, and then I tried to do like Revelations and Revelations 2 and all that stuff, but the 0 through 3 and Code Veronica were like really on my hit list, and I played all of them like just like in quick succession, and man, they're just like so insanely good. It was crazy. I like fell in love with the whole series even more after that.
So it's you've probably played them all more recently than myself. And I have a terrible memory, so I might be relying on you quite a bit.
Oh no, I have a terrible memory too.
I think like the tagline, one of the various taglines to Gaming Favorites is going to be lo-fi and on the fly, because
I like it.
I'm not a technical wizard, and I don't like editing, and also I don't want to put like tons of research into this. I just want to like just sit down and chat. I did like watch a few like videos on Resident Evil just to remind me of like which one is the one with Claire and which one's the one with Chris.
Trying to keep it all straight. It can get confusing, dude. The chronology is insane.
Oh, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's all over
then you gotta watch the movies.
Oh yeah.
There's a new one.
All the movies.
Yeah, there's a new one.
That doesn't surprise me, even though I didn't know that. But Yeah, so I guess like I think it still makes sense to go through like in release order, and I think
Yeah.
like I said, the PlayStation 1 version that I played was one of the director's cuts. And I actually learned recently that like the original version didn't like barely had any music, and then they added all of that to the director's cut.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish I remembered more clearly because I remember having a conversation with my friend about this recently about just like music and man, there's one track. I think it's like the final area in the game or something like that. There's this one track. I'm gonna like force you to put it as like the intro song if you have an intro song because it's the most hilarious. Like
The one that's just like wow.
maybe it's just like horns. It's just, like
Yeah,
so
yeah,
stupid.
that's the one. Yeah, it's really bad. I think that one's pretty infamous.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the tank controls were like really hard to get used to. Like
Mhm.
it took me like years, I feel like, to get used to them. I think they have like the beneficial side effect of like making it a little more difficult, and then like making you kind of like nervous a
Yeah.
little bit. And I assume that it was done, and I don't know this because again I didn't do any research. I assume it was done because you had like these like flat, like these flat areas that you were running on, and that way they could have like these fixed camera
Yeah,
angles.
yeah. Really, the tank controls kind of facilitate the fixed camera angle style of the game, and you'll notice like if you watch speedrunners play it, they actually prefer the tank controls because it's a lot easier to move consistently when you have them, and they're a little awkward to get used to at first. But
Mhm.
I actually find myself not minding them that much. I'm not gonna say like, sometimes I get really pretentious and snobby about it, where I'm just like, you know what, these people just like complain about the tank controls, but you know what, they're just kind of dumb because I got. But to be fair, given the option, like in the newer games, they give you the option usually to not use them. I usually go with that option, so I guess I can't really, talk too much crap, but. I don't know. I never thought they were as bad as a lot of people really make them out to be.
Mhm.
And really, they do help with the fixed camera angle thing. I think that was probably the main reason why they went with them like they did.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter why. I mean, it happened, and
Yeah.
that's what we're stuck with. But like, I think that not necessarily the tank controls, but the controls um, combined with the pre-rendered screens and like the fixed camera angles. Like, I think the thing that really brings to the table for Resident Evil that I appreciate now, as someone who played them a long time ago, is that like you can just turn a corner and there's like a zombie like right in your face and you
Yeah.
don't see him. And I think that that's great because it to me it really bothers me, even though it's great for gameplay. It bothers me how like in games you're like hiding behind a wall and you like want to go like peek out and shoot someone, but like when you're on the wall you can still see around the corner, right? Because the camera is pulled out.
Yeah, exactly.
And like it doesn't feel. It really, I feel like it makes you feel disconnected from the game.
Yeah, it can for sure. Some games have like systems to mitigate that somewhat, but not a lot of them.
Yeah. And it's a funny thing to like complain about because I'm sure that if I was playing like a third person shooter and every time I ducked around a wall, like it just zoomed in on my face so I couldn't see around the corner, I'd probably be mad about that.
Yeah.
But like it definitely like it helps with Resident Evil because yeah, in real life, like you would be slowly going around corners.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you wouldn't just be running around because then you could literally run into the arms of a zombie.
Yeah.
And in the first Resident Evil game, I feel like, at least when I played it, like I feel like I was always like a couple bites away from death, like
Oh, for sure.
essentially all the time. So I thought that was like now when I reflect back on it, I think that was a pretty neat aspect of the game, and yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. Another thing I actually really love about the first one is that I don't know what it is, but like I love. Like, I think the best character in the game is the mansion. In
In a way,
like,
yeah.
because I feel like a lot of the characters in the first one, well, on top of them being like terribly scripted and terribly like voiced,
But that's the fun.
like they're not very interesting. Like even like Wesker, like you look back at Wesker now, and Wesker's like an interesting character, but like in the first game, he's like kind of boring, and like everyone's just kind of boring. Like,
What about
tell
my
me
man
something.
Barry, dude? Come on, Barry Burton.
I was about to say, tell me something interesting about Barry Burton.
Oh my, dude. I can't. But I love Barry.
Yeah, but because he's funny, not because he's interesting. He has a
yeah,
he has a vest,
exactly.
and he has bad lines. That's like all I remember about.
Well,
him.
Resident Evil really loves to play up the cheese factor. It's a real Capcom thing, I feel like. But like, it's kind of. Can I give like my whole? Can I give like a little brief introduction on like my Resident Evil philosophy?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Okay, so here's the thing, man. A lot of people love to go on about how Resident Evil is so scary. And I get the impression, especially like with the newer games and stuff like that, people say like stuff like, oh, Resident Evil 7's taking it back to the scary roots and whatnot. I don't think. Okay, hot take. Resident Evil was never scary. Now here's the thing. Okay, that sounds like a diss, and it's not a diss. Resident Evil. It's first of all, it's so goofy, and it's always been goofy. Like up until like 4 is goofy, dude. Code Veronica, people hate Code Veronica because it's so goofy, but that's like the core of Resident Evil. But what Resident Evil is like, it's so intense and atmospheric, dude. The scariest part of Resident Evil, okay, is when you get to the item room and you look at your inventory and you're just like, dude, I'm screwed. Like there's a whole mansion just like stuffed with monsters, and I have like 2 dirty bullets and a withered up herb. Like how am I possibly gonna like that's like that's like the core of the Resident Evil experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never like I could play Resident Evil alone at night, like no problem. It's not like Silent Hill where like Silent Hill's actually scary, but it doesn't have it. They're like 2 sides of the same coin of horror games, I feel like, almost. Without going too much into Silent Hill, because that's not what this video is about. But.
Yeah, I feel like the difference between Silent Hill and Resident Evil is like Silent Hill is like it's disturbing. They try to disturb you.
Oh, it's like a haunted house, dude.
Yeah, whereas Resident Evil, at least the beginning games, definitely feels more like it's more just like jump scares, and then the game as a whole, is tense.
Yeah, it's survival horror, and it's like actual survival horror.
Yeah, the you're not actually like scared of the zombie, but you're scared of having to restart the last hour because you didn't save because you're running low on ink ribbons.
Yeah, it's just the whole situation, dude. And like that's why I always believe Resident Evil should be played your first time on hard. I don't know if you agree, but that's how I play them.
I don't like playing games on hard because I don't like dying and losing. So, but. And I think that like that kind of plays into what I said about like the mansion like being the best character, because the mansion, like on top of it looking great and just being so atmospheric, like even without music, just like looking at it, looking at all the details and just like the weirdness.
Yeah, and the level design, like those rooms
the level design's great.
Yeah, because like you're constantly looking at the map and deciding how you're going to navigate around, because like there's so many monsters and you can't kill everything, especially if you're playing on hard.
No.
So like you have to really what it is like you have to navigate the level intelligently and use your resources to your advantage. Like if you have more health healing items than you do bullets, you might have to go through some dangerous areas, take a few hits. But if you have more bullets than health, maybe it's time to like clear up some monsters, and you have to like think about what areas are high traffic areas that you're going to be using in the future, most likely, that you want to clear out and stuff like that. And the game's constantly playing with your like sense of like how to navigate this area.
Yeah, and I think there's just also something like inherently creepy about just like old style houses, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think also like what makes it great is that it's pretty empty, because like from what I recall, and I could be wrong about this because it's been a long time, is that there's no characters in the mansion like alive. There's no human characters other than like your team, right?
Not that I can remember.
So it's pretty much
I think you do save
quiet.
somebody, actually. There's like an optional quest you can do to save somebody, I think.
If it was optional, I probably didn't do it.
But he might have been part of your team. Now that I think about it, I don't remember. Man, we're on the ball.
Yeah, but also like it just made me think of I don't know, like whenever I read in high school, I read Wuthering Heights, which I think it's Emily Bronte. I could be wrong, but it's like for those that didn't read it, it's like a classic literature book about like a love triangle, but it's like it's very Victorian in the sense that they describe like the wind against the window panes, and everyone's just like really sad all the time, and like it kind of made me like feel like I feel like if you took all the like weird machinery and stuff out of the mansion, like the mansion could have still been that way like 100 years before, like it has that like timeless kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
But then it has like these weird like areas where there's like, this really high tech vault with like a finger scanner like behind a picture or something, right?
Yeah.
So like on the surface it looks very different than what it is. And then I think there's the lab underneath the mansion as well.
Yeah.
So there's that too. So I think honestly the best, my favorite character is the mansion myself. And I think too, another technical limitation that I actually enjoy is the door transitions and the walking upstairs and stuff, where you get to a door and then it's basically a loading screen.
Yeah.
To slowly open the door up. I honestly like that.
It does have an interesting sort of charm to it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it is.
Well, it's really smart. Like, it's a great way to keep you in the game, like during a loading scene, like which was going to happen anyway, and it could have just said now loading. Or it can get you a little bit like oh, what's going to be behind? Because you never, like I said, the mansion's constantly. What's great about the game is the mansion's constantly evolving. So especially if you play the remake, like Crimson Heads are coming to life in the remake and stuff like that. You never really know like if there's going to be new monsters in a room, and it does a really good job to keep you in that mindset and just like have you anticipating like what's going to be behind the door, what's going to be up the stairs.
Yeah, because I'm picturing an alternative version in my brain where like if they didn't have the door transitions or even loading screens where you just open up a door and then you're like the camera just pans and you're in the next room, like I feel like it would make you feel like you're less present. It would feel more gamey, I suppose, and less atmospheric. So that was like a thing I actually really liked about it. Even though it's clear that they're masking loading screens, like they do it with some decent decent sound design. And
yeah, they were smart about it.
I thought that was... Yeah. And I also really liked, too, how like you could rotate your items and look at them up close. Like, I thought that was a really neat aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's always a fun little bit to it.
Yeah, which I feel like they took out of 2 and 3, but I could be wrong.
2 remake, you definitely have to do it a lot, so... I'm way more familiar with 2 remake than I am with 2 because it's been like years since I played 2, and I just played 2 remake like a year ago. But yeah, but I don't think they completely dropped that, but I mean definitely by 4 it was gone.
Was it
4? You could kind of like combine items together, but you never really had to inspect them.
Right, yeah. I did want to. Whenever you said it's not scary, I did want to bring up the moment. You must have jumped the moment, the first moment where those dogs burst through the window.
Yeah, everyone's always going off about the dogs. Look, I might have. I honestly don't remember. I don't remember like the very first time I saw the dogs. And I'll admit it's a startling moment. It's like now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably one of the best new enemy introduction like scenarios I can think of, if anything, just for how memorable it is, because you're just not expecting it. I mean, you're just like you're like ready for zombies, man, slow moving, like things that are gonna bite me, like but it's okay, I got a gun, I can handle it. And then all of a sudden it's just like dogs. It's like, oh, and they're so fast, and like they're a great enemy.
Yeah, because you can't just like you can't avoid them really.
Yeah,
like,
and they show up in such a convenient, like they show up in a hall that it really sucks that they show up in that hall, because you don't even get the chance to like search the hall for items or anything like that. And there's plenty of items in that hall, by the way. So it's great introduction. I still don't know if that one moment would qualify the whole game as being super scary though.
No, I agree. I do think there's definitely more fear in the remake, which I kind of feel like we could talk about, even though we just said we're going to do it in release order.
Well,
We're
to be
breaking
honest,
the rules.
I've never played the original Resident Evil 1. I've only played the remake.
Okay.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, and the remake is so damn good.
It's crazy how, like, I mean, you know, I'm usually not super for remakes, because in my mind it's just like, you know, I kind of wish they just make a new game. Like, this game is the exception though, where like this was a remake that really deserves to be made.
Oh, definitely. And I think I mean, for those who are listening who aren't sure what we're talking about the I think it was in 2002, around there, Capcom remade, basically completely from the ground up, remade the first Resident Evil, and they added some content and enemies and stuff, which we'll talk about. But it's also, the GameCube just felt like a really weird place to put it. I'm not sure why they did that, but I'm glad they did, because I mean, there's a lot of hullabaloo about this, but I think it's generally agreed upon that if you're doing it right, the GameCube can make better graphics than the PS2. And I think that this, like, the GameCube, like, I know it is still static screens, but like playing that game now, even, I'm still like, oh, this game looks so good.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The some of the best, like, pre-rendered backgrounds, like, you'll see in anything. And yeah, they didn't. It's not like a reimagining, I would say, which is sometimes I'm kind of against. But like, it's basically all the same beats, just with a few like added things here.
Yeah,
and there.
well, Shinji Mikami, you know, the director, like, really, it's. I think I read this before, but like, he just added a bunch of stuff that like he wanted to add in the original, but just because of like hardware limitations, he couldn't. And they're really interesting. Like, what stands out to me every time is the Crimson Heads.
Yeah,
it's just such a great sort of like way to add tension and like more evolution to the mansion, and just another element of decision making you have to make when you're like killing zombies, because you don't know, like, if I'm clearing out this room and I don't blow up the zombie's head or burn him, like, it's going to come back as an even worse enemy. So like, what do you do?
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was like there was a chance of it doing that, like if you were like rolling the dice.
I'm pretty sure as like, if you leave the body and you don't destroy the head or burn it, it will come back as a Crimson Head.
Yeah, and from what I remember, they're quite a bit stronger. They're faster.
Yeah, they're way faster and they're way stronger. They're
so that was definitely. Yeah, and you can like see them and hear them coming, and they just like basically, like, I wouldn't say they run at you, but they're
actually pretty fast. Like, you can hear them.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, you can hear them stomping along. Like, when you get to a hallway, you can hear them coming for you, and I'd say that's even more intense than the dogs.
Yeah.
That's
definitely.
legitimately like kind of creepy, to be honest.
Yeah. So I thought that was a welcome addition, and it did definitely add another like little layer, because, like you said, they're just standard zombies, but if you don't dispose of the body properly, which sometimes you can't, like, you try to shoot their heads off, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But then there's also the element of like, you have to manage gasoline, I think. Like, you need to go like actually collect it, and you're just like, do I burn this zombie? Like, am I gonna be here again? What are the odds of me having to go through this hallway?
Yeah, and
if
what does it take to get back to my lighter or whatever? Like,
yeah,
it might be tough.
If the chances are high that I'm going to be coming through here, I guess I should burn it, but then I'm gonna have to go get more fuel, and just like, so there's definitely like another balance. And if you get like it gets easier the longer the game goes, because you get to know the mansion better, you get to unlock like secret routes and that kind of thing. So it definitely adds like a new element. And I didn't find that the fuel management and burning and disposing of the bodies, like, it didn't make it like much harder. I do think the fact that they like the Crimson, what did you call them? Crimson
Heads?
The Crimson Heads. I don't think like they're actually like, yeah, they're definitely tougher enemies, but I don't think the actual management of the bodies made it more difficult. It just added another layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's just more decision making, really. Decision making with like how, like, what resources you're gonna have on hand. And like, also, like, if I burn the zombie now, maybe I'm not gonna have enough fuel to burn zombies later. So there's always that little bit of decision making in your mind, like, how am I gonna manage all these resources correctly, and how am I gonna fit everything into my inventory but still leave space for like stuff that I need to pick up, or like just that's like Resident Evil, I think, at its best, is when it's like you're constantly making decisions and strategizing like what you're gonna do next.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the one aspect of like the older games that I'm not crazy about is the item management, which we didn't talk about when we talked about we're still talking about the first game technically.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't remember how many slots you have. It's like 8 maybe? Like, it's not a lot.
Yeah, I think it depends on the character you're playing as, and it might be upgradable with items you find later, but that might have just been in 2. But yeah. I think one of the characters has a couple more slots than another character.
But regardless, it was definitely like an aspect that kind of would bother me, and I do wish didn't really exist. Like, I understand, like, to me it's fine to be like, okay, so you only have limited amount of bullets, use your bullets well.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing where the game is like, you only have 8 slots, but you want your lighter, you want your gun, you want your bullets, you want some health. Like, manage your box properly, I suppose.
See,
like, that kind of bothered me.
See, I like it because, again, it comes back to like, okay, I'm gonna go through these series of like, I'm at my item box right now, and I know where I need to go, or at least I think I know where I need to go. Sometimes you don't, and that's even scarier. So I'm gonna try to make it to this spot on the map, but I know there's enemies in the way. So what am I gonna take? Because I might not be able to come back that easily. So I have to be like smart and think, okay, I'm gonna take this, this, and this, keeping in mind like I might find an important item or two along the way. So I want to keep space in my inventory. Like, how much health do I bring? Am I gonna need health, or am I gonna try to make it through without getting hit? Like, I honestly don't know if you could really have the same sort of game experience without the inventory management as it was.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, and maybe if a version existed where you could do that, I would play it again. But I think also just part of it is just me being older and just like, I don't have time for this. The thing that would bother me is whenever like you find like a medallion or a key and you're just like carrying it around for like hours because you're like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need to use this soon, and then it turns out you don't need it for like until you're like hours farther, and you're just like, well, I just wasted the space carrying this darn key this whole time.
I mean, for me, like, that's also part of it, but I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, it can be cumbersome, and especially like in the older games when, like, it took a little bit of longer to load the inventory screen, stuff like that. Like, it's never fun to sift through menus. So like, it could have been tightened up a little bit, but like back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
But I genuinely enjoyed it. And I feel like when they stripped it out, like I guess 4 would be a good example of stuff of a game where you can carry everything, I guess. So it'd be interesting if we could kind of touch on this subject later when we're talking about 4 as well.
Yeah, it's in my notes. I do have in 4.
Oh yeah,
briefcase management, which we'll get to. But I guess like one other thing I wanted to say about the remake was that I think that it's pretty split, opinion wise, on whether people enjoy the addition of Lisa. I think that's her name. There's an enemy where I'm sorry if I'm misremembering the lore, where she had taken like the faces of her family and like added it to her body. Lisa Trevor, was that her name?
That's what I just looked up on Google. I don't even remember this. This was in 1?
This was in the remake, only the remake. It's like in a new area outside, like in a cabin or something, and she has this weird like backstory about like, I think her family was experimenting on her, and I don't really remember, but I do remember
no idea
being
about this.
Well, you must have just not remember, because I mean, maybe you can avoid it. I'm not sure.
Is it I don't know if it's a man. Okay, well, I'm gonna look into this.
Yeah, I thought she was really creepy and like a cool addition. Like, it was very obvious to me, like, okay, this is an addition.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was great. Like, it was welcome. Like, it to me it felt organic. Like it fit well into it. Same with the Crimson Heads. Like, they didn't feel out of place to me.
Yeah, they felt very well. I think that just all comes back to like like Shinji Mikami coming back, like having the original director there really, I think is the key to doing a remake correctly.
Yeah, no,
Because he knows
agree.
the vision. Like, he knows what he wanted out of it.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a pretty, like, Resident Evil as a whole, at least in the older days, definitely had like a lot of development problems and disagreements and differences of philosophies. Because I know that there was like an entirely different Resident Evil 2 being made, and it was like 80% done or something, and they scrapped it, and like then just restarted from the ground up to make the Resident Evil 2 that we know. And I think it was actually like leaked in like 2013, I think.
Oh, really?
So you can and like people have like tried to patch it to like make it work. So I think there's like a semi-playable version of Resident Evil 2. It might be called Resident Evil like 1.5 or something, right?
I didn't know about that.
So if you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan, you might want to check that out.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan, you have to play every single edition of the first game ever released.
Yeah. And then all the ports of all the different games. Like Resident Evil, I didn't realize growing up, but Resident Evil is like it's such a ported series. There's ports
oh man, dude,
every game on everything.
My friend sent me this was never released, but my friend sent me like this crazy like he sent me like a Game Boy emulator and everything. They tried to port the original to Game Boy.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. And I thought
I played it. It
looks
was insane.
In my opinion, yeah. So for those that aren't aware, before the Game Boy Color game, I think it was Resident Evil Gaiden. Before they made that, they tried to basically just port the original Resident Evil game on the Game Boy Color, and you can go look up some like screenshots, or I think there's some videos as well. And honestly,
you can play the ROM.
Oh yeah, I haven't played it. I want to.
Yeah, my friend sent me the ROM with a Game Boy emulator. He's like, "Play this, dude." I was playing it. It was like, "This is cool, but wow, I can see why this did not come out because this was not gonna work."
Yeah, I think control-wise and stuff, it wouldn't really work. But I think visually, I think it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting for sure. Like,
well, like they have like this weird like sprite scaling, right? So like, when because they still wanted to keep the same fixed screens. Mm-hmm. So whenever like you're playing Jill and she's closer to you, she's made of, we'll say like 100 pixels. And as like she walks farther away from you into the background, like she becomes less and less, like fewer and fewer pixels to get smaller.
That's what struck me. Like, it was kind of insane how faithful it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the first two rooms or something. I don't even know if it was built more than the first two rooms, but it was pretty cool.
It's a cool proof of concept.
Yeah.
And if kind of on that topic, like on other games on the Game Boy Color that are crazy, the port of Dragon's Lair is also pretty crazy.
I've never,
because Dragon's Lair is also a very visual game, and but that one they finished and like released, I'm pretty sure, and it's obviously doesn't control as great and look amazing, but like as a technical masterpiece, I think, like it's, or not a masterpiece, but it's a technical marvel, I think, that it exists.
This looks like a masterpiece to me. That is masterpiece material.
But yeah, Resident Evil 2 proper, I've only played the GameCube version, and for those who need a refresher, that's the one with Leon and Claire. And it's basically, I think it's supposed to be like a couple months after Resident Evil 1, which I find weird. Like, I would have thought it would have been, like a week or something afterwards, but apparently, it takes a long time for that T-virus to get down from the mansion to all the
totally don't remember any of the chronology. Like 1, 2, and I think 3, like, they're all just kind of like mishmashed in the same, like, this one takes place a few hours before. It's like,
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, Leon and Claire are some pretty good characters. I'm not like a crazy fan of Leon in this game, but I really like Claire.
Claire's the best Resident Evil girl, dude.
And I don't actually know why. I think it's just her attitude, where she's, I don't know, I think she's quite a bit younger than Jill and Chris. And she just, I don't know, she just kind of has this like, well, got to get stuff done attitude, but she's not, like, she's still, I don't know.
I love her red jacket. There's something
Yeah.
about her jacket really gets me.
Honestly, the jacket is a big part of it. I don't know why.
Well, dude, when I think of Claire, I think of red.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. In the 2 remakes, she's such a cutie. Like, she's so cool.
Yeah, I do really like her. I think it was because I don't remember her backstory, but I guess she's the first character that you play that isn't. She's not like a special agent or anything. Like whenever you play Chris or you play Jill or you play Leon, like they're all like trained like gunmen, and they know why they're there. Whereas I think Claire is just like she's just this woman that.
Well, Leon's a rookie cop in the in 2.
Yeah,
but
he still has
trained.
He still has training.
I don't remember Claire's whole backstory.
I think she was just there to find Chris. But I don't remember like what her profession was or anything.
Yeah, I just don't like. Not that Resident Evil makes any sense, but it would make sense that like she would have some sort of like self-defensive training, given the things she does in the game. But
and maybe she does, and people listening to this are like, "Oh, I'm tapping out. These guys don't know anything." But this like I think the last time I played Resident Evil 2 was probably. It's been over 10 years. Like it's been a while, so I'm going a lot off of memory here.
Man,
but I thought that
was I played like a couple of years ago, maybe.
I think what was really great about it was that it took you outside and like really showed you like the city of Raccoon City, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I think that was great because it was like more expansive. They were more like zombies because they could have been everywhere, right? Like whereas in the mansion, you expect there's going to be a limit to how many zombies there are but this is like an entire city.
Yeah, you want to see it like amplified to like now let's see what happens when it hits society like proper,
Yeah, and there's a lot more like human characters that you run into and have to rescue, and there's different people with different backstories, so it definitely like fleshes out the world. The one thing that is weird about it is that, like how I mentioned before, how the mansion's the best character in the first game. It makes sense to me that the mansion is so weird because it was like built by this like eccentric, like kind of crazy person who just like was like really like almost like a Saw like character, right? Like he's like was really into like gadgets and secrets and traps and that kind of stuff, and just like a really weird guy. So it made sense that you had, these weird contraptions everywhere. But then you go to Raccoon City, and it's just like, oh, you have to take the medallion from this one thing and put it in the town clock, and then make sure the gems are in there. And you're just like, what? What kind of city is this? Like,
to be fair, I think, well, the police station, I believe, was meant to be repurposed from, it was a different building. I'm trying to look at the Wikipedia page to see what it used to be. But it was like it was supposed to be like some other building before, and it was turned into a police station. So I think that might be how they try to kind of explain that sort of stuff.
But it's not just the police station. Like I said, like there's like areas outside, like in the park, and just there's like these weird sections where you're just like the city infrastructure is also bizarre. Like some of it makes sense. Like, oh, you have to take this battery from this car and put it in this light over here to make it shine somewhere, but like some of it is just like really bizarre, and it doesn't have that same feel. Like
all
Raccoon
my memory
City
just goes to Resident Evil to the remake, so I'm trying to like remember specific things from 2, but are we gonna talk about like the remake alongside 2, or are we gonna keep going really order and do the remake later?
I haven't played any of the remakes. I watched a friend of mine play through a lot of the third remake, so I can comment on that when we get to 3. But yeah, if you wanted to talk about that, I would say that 2 is enjoyable. I definitely enjoyed 2, not as much as 1, but it was good. And another thing I did want to say is that I've wanted for so long to have the N64 version, just because like to me it's just amazing that it exists.
Yeah, I always seemed pretty strange.
Yeah, because to me, like I said, like Resident Evil to me was like that's one of the PlayStation things. Like to me, it feels like some sort of bizarro world where, Resident Evil is on the 64.
Yeah, it was the only one released for 64, huh? Was it?
Maybe. I mean, 3 maybe. I think Nemesis might have been released on it as well, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I actually heard that the music is better on the 64, like higher quality, which is interesting, seeing as, you know, CDs are supposed, like, one of the big selling points is that the music is better.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, it's not worth me shelling out the money for the novelty, but I do hope someday to play it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd definitely be an interesting experience for sure.
Mm.
Yeah,
But
all I
yeah,
had
if
was
you want to
2
touch
on
on the remake.
the PSN, but I mean, yeah, no, the remake was pretty good, honestly. Like, especially coming off 7, and we'll talk about 7. I have a lot to say about 7. I think I feel like I have a lot to say about 7, but it might not be that much when I actually say it. But coming off 7, I was a little worried because I just didn't know what to expect, really. Because, you know, the 1 remake is so good, but, you know, that was a long time ago, and like 2 from the very start looked like it was definitely going to be a lot different of a remake than the first one. And I just wasn't sure if they were going to, like, try to, because it was made in the Resident Evil 7 engine too, I believe. I just didn't know if they were going to try to, like, evolve it to be more like 7, or if they were going to try to keep it more like 2. But I gotta be honest, I think 2 remake is exactly what I would want the series to be like from here on out. Like, it was a third person game, so, you know, like the same sort of like third person controls as like 4 or 5 or something like that, but it felt like a classic Resident Evil game. Like, it was really intense. You know, the survival aspect was really strong, and it was very atmospheric. It looks amazing, and I just really dug it.
Is it like, because I know the third one is I wouldn't say it's a different game, but it's like, at least the third remake is like, it feels like it's like based on a true story. If Resident Evil 3 was the true story, and then they made the remake, and, you know, they're just like, yeah, so there's the same enemies most of the time and some of the same set pieces, but it's a pretty different game.
Like, you're asking, like, how does the remake of 2 feel like compared to the original, or?
Yeah, like story wise, like how similar.
It's hard to say, because I didn't feel like I remembered enough about 2 to really like if, you know, normally I'd be totally just like, I wish I had like a really recent memory of 2 so I could really nitpick like what they changed and what they didn't change. But unfortunately, my memories of 2 is just not high enough resolution to do that right now. But I know there was some stuff that people were upset they left out. Like, I think 2 had a section where there was giant spiders like you fought in the first game. Mm-hmm. And that was not in 2 remake at all, which honestly, you know, I'm kind of arachnophobic, so
no spiders. 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, interesting consideration that sometimes developer press have to make these days, but I mean, it would have been really creepy. But yeah, so people were kind of upset about that, and I can understand that. Oh man, you know what I don't remember in 2? Maybe you remember more than me. Mr. X.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about him from 2, the original?
I just remember he was really annoying.
He followed you around, right?
Yeah, he's basically he's like pre-Nemesis, where he's just like this guy in this big trench coat, and he just shows up and slowly walks towards you. And
did he follow you around the police station? Like did he wander around like real time, and sometimes you'd run into him and sometimes you wouldn't? Because that's how it works in 2 remake.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, honestly, I get him and Nemesis mixed up because I started playing Resident Evil 3 like recently when the remake came out, because I felt left out because the internet was like, yeah, Resident Evil 3 remake, and I was like, I'm just gonna play my GameCube version. And I started playing it, and I was like, man, Nemesis is not nearly as hard as I remember, and I think it's because in my memory I'm mixing up Nemesis and Mr. X, and I feel like Mr. X might have been actually like a bigger threat than Nemesis is, or I'm mixing them all together, but
well,
yeah, okay. I don't really recall.
I'll have to talk about Mr. X only in the context of 2 remake, unfortunately.
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't even remember him at all. I need to replay 2. But so Mr. X in 2 remake is insane. Like, he is just, first of all, like, super threatening. Like, the sound effect of his boots on the floor is ridiculous. It's just this powerful, like, ka-thunk, ka-thunk, and he just, like... And so what impressed me is he seems to wander the mansion, or wander the police station, like, in a sort of real-time fashion. I'm not really sure the programming behind him, but it seems like, because you can trick him into, like, wandering into certain areas so you can get by, like, go around those areas and stuff like that. But, like, when he gets close, you can hear his footsteps, and you're constantly just like, oh my god, like, I spent so much time, and my friends watched me play it, so they know this. I spent so much time just, like, sitting in a hallway with my gun out, just, like, aiming, and just, like, where's he at? I was, like, sitting there waiting, and my friend's like, dude, this looks so boring. I'm like, no. You don't understand. I'm trying really hard to survive right now. Okay. So Mr. X in 2 is totally badass. Here's how they ruined it. Mr. X in 2 can't go into save rooms, and it's ridiculous because he literally just cannot walk through the door, and he tries really hard to. So you'll go into a save room, and these save rooms, they're like, and even some rooms that aren't save rooms, they're completely safe. So if you make it to this room, there's just no way you can get in there. It's completely safe. You can fire your gun or whatever, which he'll normally hear and follow you, which is another interesting aspect of him, by the way, that I don't know if they did that. I don't know if they had the technical capabilities to do that in the original 2. But yeah, so it's really cool. But knowing you have these rooms where he just can't enter, which looks ridiculous, which makes him look ridiculous, which kills it. But it's just, it ruins all the tension, almost. Not all of it, but it ruins a lot of it. And thankfully in 3, they did kind of fix that because Nemesis can go into save rooms in the 3 remake. But there's a lot of other problems with 3 remake. We'll get to that in a sec.
That is interesting because, I mean, on the one aspect, you do want a place where you can feel safe. Because, like, you need a place where you can...
Well, you want a place where
hide.
You can feel safe.
Yeah, but then I guess if they... Yes, in the modern world, it does make it feel silly. Because obviously, he's huge and can just Kool-Aid Man through the door. If
yeah, exactly. And honestly, at one point, dude, the biggest scare I had in 2... And you know what? I will say, 2, actually sometimes legitimately freaky. It's so atmospheric. There's one time in 2... where you're just walking, and he actually does Kool-Aid Man just through the wall, and I got the biggest jump scare. I was like, my heart jumped out of my chest, and I'm like, dude, I can't. It was insane. It's so awesome. But yeah, the save room thing really does just kind of, it doesn't completely ruin it, but once you find it out, man, it kind of takes away a lot of the tension, because you can just sit there and wait for him to wander away, even though he clearly knows you're right there. And I feel like if they didn't do that, it would have been so much more, like, immersive and atmospheric and just add to that tension. Like, the tension would be so high.
I guess part of that aspect is that, like, most of the save rooms, from my recollection, are quite small and only have one entrance. So if they were to follow you in there, like, you wouldn't necessarily be able to get out.
Oh, that's the best part, dude. I'm gonna go in here and save. Like hell, man. Just, like, busted the door. Oh, yeah. And honestly, like, to that end, you could get away if you had, like, a grenade or something. You can stun him.
Sure.
But I think it would be pretty dumb if you were running from Mr. X to go into a dead-end room in the first place, because you just, like, you don't know when you're first playing, but you would expect that he'd just follow you in there.
Sure. I guess the entire concept of Mr. X and Nemesis as well does create a conflict of realism and playability, because like in real life, Nemesis and Mr. X would not leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly.
They would just walk towards you and then just, like, crush your head like a melon, and it would be over.
Yeah, and I really don't...
That's their whole purpose.
Yeah, and I just don't think they had any excuse, because, like, Resident Evil, what's cool about I don't know if all the games do this, but it definitely feels like they do. And I know this happened to my friend, so I know it happens in 2 Remake. They're not afraid to lock you in a place where you can't progress because you didn't do good enough. Like my friend, I convinced my friend to play on hard, and he didn't follow the number 1 rule. He didn't make backup saves. Like, he didn't stagger out backup saves. He got stuck on the first boss because he didn't have enough bullets. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's the fun of it, dude. Like, there was some parts during 2 Remake, it was looking bleak. Like, I was not sure if I was going to finish the game. But, man, like, you try hard enough, you strategize, you pull it out eventually if you're good enough, and that's like my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean that is a good. If anyone listening to this for some reason is listening to this and it has not played Resident Evil games and is inspired to, multiple saves is a necessity. Because you can kind of put yourself in a corner where you don't have bullets or health. Or another aspect of it, Resident Evil, is that for me it's one of those game series where like you can't stop playing it. There was a few times like playing the first like 3 games, I would say, where you start playing Resident Evil, you get a couple hours in, and then something happens in life, so you can't play for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then you go back and you're just like, where was I?
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Yeah, it's like Metroid.
And yeah, and then honestly, trying to like look up like a guide or something doesn't necessarily help because you don't remember where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, because usually if you get an item, you use it and then it's gone, so you don't even remember that you had it. And if like it's like, oh, like what room am I in? Well, a lot of the rooms have backtracking, and like so like looking up a guide was never really helpful for me, so I would honestly just have to restart the game.
Not to mention when you load up the game, like you're like, look, okay, like what puzzle solving items do I have? Oh, like an arrowhead and a rusty wheel. Like, oh yeah, I totally remember where these would be applicable.
Yeah, it relies really heavily on you paying attention to small details and inspecting lots of things and remembering, and also being creative in some sense.
Yeah.
Because they do this sometimes where, like in the first one, I think there's a few crests or medallions or whatever where it's like, oh, this is the shield one and this is the sword one or whatever. And they don't necessarily they all have specific places you need to put them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might remember, okay, so above the fireplace, there was a hole that a crest could fit in. But what is this? Was it the shield crest? Was it the helmet crest? Was it the sword crest?
Yeah.
So you definitely have to think about it, which was like, this was a great aspect, honestly, of playing with my girlfriend at the time, was that there was 2 of us to solve this stuff together.
Yeah.
Like, because I would say like, oh my God, I don't remember where this crest was because I'm busy trying to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would be like, oh, I think that was above the fireplace. Like, remember that? And I'd say, no, but I'm glad you're here to tell me.
Yeah, exactly. And me and my friend like to do, well, we used to play a lot of D&D, and we used to talk about like D&D, like dungeon design and stuff like that. And we also really love to play Silent Hill together as well. We recently played all the old Silent Hill games together, and usually I'll play and he'll just watch. But like we like to kind of like figure out where to go. I'll kind of man the controls, and we'll both kind of like figure out where we're supposed to go next and stuff like that. And he said something interesting, like the reason he likes, or one of the reasons he thinks he likes Silent Hill, and I think this extends to Resident Evil as well, is that it's kind of like a dungeon crawler in a way.
In the aspect, yeah, I guess like where you have this large map and different rooms and progression, and it's tough as well.
Yeah, you're like mapping out an area. Yeah, like feeling around for like traps and like trying to remember where certain, like trying to look for like items and treasures and trying to like solve puzzles. Like it's pretty dungeon crawly actually.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, like especially the first one, like if you were to take the first Resident Evil game and make it take place like in a castle, the game would be very similar. Like, instead of guns, you add swords or arrows or something, right? Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, having a giant room with like different areas you can walk into and have to unlock things. Like, yeah, no, that's actually an interesting point. I never thought about that, but it is sort of D&D-esque. Like, you could very easily turn the first game into a good D&D campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just thought that was kind of an interesting observation, and I agree with it.
Yeah, but that does also bring up the point that like I'm realizing now that I'm talking to you that like I think most Resident Evil games I have played with somebody else, and I think that's definitely my preferred way of doing it. And it's also it also adds to the fun of making fun of like the cheese.
Oh yeah,
because like some of the
sure.
the first game has so many like iconic lines, and they're iconic for reasons. They're so poorly written. And then also terribly acted. Yeah, they're great.
They're great games to riff on.
Yeah, so really, like it and to me that doesn't like really take away from any of the fear I'm feeling, because like we said earlier, the fear is like the fear of losing.
Dude,
It's not the
yeah.
fear of like, oh, is this scary zombie?
Honestly, it's like, to me, it's like the yin and yang, man. Like, I prefer Resident Evil with some cheese.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think we'll talk about that when we get to 4.
Oh yeah, dude.
but
Oh,
but I think three because 3 in general, I think I don't know, I think you posted something saying that like Resident Evil 3 remake made a bad Resident Evil game worse or something. But I think I like 3, but I think my issue, like, I think by itself it's an okay game.
okay.
It's a decent game, but I think that after playing 2, it's kind of tired, because it feels kind of like 2.5. Because like the first one was like, here's the mansion, and then a lab. There's like very few areas you go into, right? It's pretty contained within like like a 1 kilometer radius, right?
Yeah.
But then Resident Evil 2 is like, oh, look at the city, and you're like, okay, cool. And then Resident Evil 3 is like, look at the same city from a slightly different angle, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of felt tired, and the only thing that they quote unquote added was the Nemesis, which is basically Mr. X from the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually 3 was supposed to be I don't think it was supposed to be 3. I think it was supposed to be like a different.
Well, from what I heard,
it was just supposed to be Nemesis.
What I heard, Code Veronica was supposed to be 3, or at least like they were both kind of made at the same time. I don't think it's really super confirmed whether or not like 3 was supposed to be 3 or Code Veronica was supposed to be 3. But I'll tell you, Code Veronica definitely feels like more of a progression. But yeah, I think it was kind of a toss up, like which one was going to be 3 and like which one was going to be a spin-off, and like 3 does feel, it has spin-off-y vibes to it for sure.
Yeah, and I think but that being said, and I don't know if this happened in previous games, but I did like, it does take you out of the game a little bit, but I do actually like they have branching paths.
Yeah.
And they have like some random events and random enemies showing up, which is kind of nice.
Sure.
So I feel like 3 has a lot of replayability, which is nice. I do find some of the save areas are really far apart, and that the bosses are not fun. Like there was this one part that almost made me quit when I was playing recently, where you fall through first you go through an area, Nemesis shows up, so you have to avoid Nemesis. Then you walk through an area, the ground collapses, you fall underground, there's a worm there, like a underground worm that like attacks you, and then he's pretty tough. So then you beat him. Then you go through another area, and then you have to restart the I think it's like a train, like a city tram or something. Mm-hmm. So then you put all the pieces in. Then Nemesis shows up in the train, and that's a pretty tough fight because he's really fast and strong and huge, and you are basically in a train where you have nowhere to run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did that like 25 times.
Oof.
And maybe that's just because I suck, but I find that like tank controls and like being clumsy and having Nemesis, which is super speedy, just didn't work for me. And so I ended up like having to restart that a lot of times personally. So I find that there's a few areas in Resident Evil 3 where like the spaces are just they're really spread out, the save areas. And I find that like the quick dodge, which I don't know if they added in 3 or if that was also in 2, but the quick dodge is like useless. Like I
don't even remember that being in the game.
Well, it's because the quick dodge button I think is the same as the shooting button.
Oh.
So you have to like, basically it's a timing thing. So you have to like, so you're shooting, but then you have to like release your shooting button and then hold it again at the right time to dodge or something.
Yeah,
like
I was never a big fan of quick dodge in Resident Evil games where it was implemented.
Yeah, so, and I might be misremembering how it works, but what I do remember is that I did not like it, and most of the time it didn't work well for me. Maybe other people found it helpful, but I found it just added a little bit of hope, just so it could crush you.
I'm sure if you're great at it, it's awesome. like I'm sure speedrunners use it. I don't know. I've never seen any speedruns at 3, but.
And I guess the one other, like, I don't have much to say about 3, but I mean, I guess we didn't even mention. I keep forgetting that some people listening to this might not know everything about it. But 3 is where it's basically the same as 2, except you play as Jill. That's basically it.
Yeah. Was there another character
Nemesis.
You played as? Carlos.
There's like, Carlos.
Jill and Carlos.
But I don't know. You don't play him too much, I don't think. I think it focuses on Jill a lot.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention, I think it's the normal mode, or there's two modes in the GameCube one, and or it might be like light or easy or something, but it's the recent one that I used, and they did this thing where like they give you infinite ink ribbons, which is neat, but you still have to carry around the ink ribbons, so it still uses up a spot, which is annoying. And I'm like, if you're just gonna make it easier and take away the need to use ink ribbons, just take away the ink ribbons.
Man, we didn't even mention ink ribbons. That's like a genius part of the game to me, like all the Resident Evil games.
Yeah, I think it's a good aspect. I think it's a very tough thing to balance. Like, I think that in some games I like it, and other games I like it less. And it might just be because of that playthrough, right? Like, you're playing through the game and you don't know how long it is, and you happen to use a bunch at the beginning, and then you're kind of screwed at the end.
Well, the thing is, they actually give you a lot, but the first time playing, you don't know how long it's going to be. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, you only get one first playthrough, you know? That's why I always play on hard. And I love that aspect of, like, you know, I'm probably good, but maybe not. And so you're always, conserving them.
Yeah. Oh, and one other aspect I don't like about 3 is they give you, like, the ability to make bullets by like combining
the gunpowder.
Like, here's gunpowder A, gunpowder B, gunpowder C, and then like, if you take 2 seeds, it makes grenades.
Wasn't that in 2 as well?
It could be.
It was in 2 Remake. I know that.
Well, regardless, I hate that aspect of it because it just means you're carrying around more stuff. Like, just give me bullets. Like, don't make me carry 3 different kinds of powder plus a device that you have to use to put the powder together to make bullets. Like, it makes space inventory management so annoying. So I don't like that aspect of those games.
I can see that. I'm the decision making guy, so I love it. Anything that makes me think about, like, what am I gonna do here?
Yeah,
but I don't really remember much about 3. I remember when I was doing my little marathon that I told you about, like, that was like the only one I didn't already own. I had to like eBay order it, which I never usually do. I like to find games in store, but I really wanted it, so I was like, I got it for the Dreamcast of all things. I heard that was like a pretty good version. And
yeah, I think the general consensus is that most of the Dreamcast versions are at least look better than the PlayStation versions, and then
makes sense.
I mean, that's just the general consensus. Yeah, because obviously the PS1 and the Dreamcast are 2 very different systems, and Dreamcast is pretty decently powerful.
Yeah, like a half gen ahead.
Yep, a whole half gen.
Yep, whole half gen. But okay. But to go back to that Facebook comment, I didn't say it made a bad game worse. I just said the remake made it worse. That's all I said. That being said, 3 was by far my least favorite of the whole like classic series.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think it's a decent game, but it's, you know, one was super original and good, and then like 2 was like expansive, and 3 was kind of like eh. Like if it would have even just had a different environment, then I probably would have been okay with it. You know, like they set it in Germany or something, right? And they're like, the T virus got to Germany somehow, and
yeah,
like even if just like it just looked differently, I probably would have felt very different about it than if it was just like, it's just the other part of Raccoon City that you didn't already explore in the last game.
Yeah, like I said, it's just got it's got some real spin-off-y vibes, you know. Yeah, I got that too.
And the 3 remake, I did watch probably half of it. This is coming from someone who doesn't know anything about the remake for the second one. Is I thought it looked great. Like visually, I thought it was awesome. Gameplay wise, it looked good. And I was playing Resident Evil 3 at the same time as I was watching the remake, and a lot of the stuff that they changed I thought was like made sense.
Well, it doesn't have branching paths anymore, which
that's
I was
true.
Disappointed about, because that was like my favorite feature of the original 3. That was like the one thing in 3 where I was like, that's kind of interesting, there's like branching paths. But my impression of 3 remake was, well, we made 2 remake, and you know,
that made money.
Let's just do 3 real quick, like, because like Nemesis is kind of like Mr. X, but worse. Nemesis is just annoying in 3 remake. He's just like follows you around. He's just like Mr. X, except he has this grapple move that you like. It's I don't know if you might be able to dodge it, but it's really hard to dodge. And he was just annoying. It felt really. You can inspect items in 3. I think they use it like once, and it's literally just to like do some little trivial thing. And it's just so obvious to me that like they just had like the bare bones from 2 remake and they just like slapped together 3 real quick, and it felt as spin-offy of the remake series as 3 did of the original series. So in that way, it was a pretty good remake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it looked okay to me. I enjoyed like watching it and like talking to my friend as he was playing it. I had a good time.
Yeah.
And if I had the ability to play them, I probably would, but I don't right now.
2 remake is great. I definitely recommend that one.
Okay, so you said that that 3 is your least favorite in the classic series. So does that mean that is this where classic ends for you at Resident Evil 3, or does Veronica?
No, Code Veronica,
Zero...
I totally count, and that is classic survival horror right there. And Code Veronica is sick.
Yeah. I played that one. I've only played that one on the Dreamcast.
Yeah, that's what I have it on as well.
And to me it was really different because I didn't even know it existed. Like, I bought my Dreamcast secondhand. I knew nothing about the Dreamcast, and then it came with a stack of games. One of them was Code Veronica, and I was just like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Another Resident Evil game. All right.
To
cool.
be honest,
like
Code Veronica is like my actual origins to the series, because my dad bought a Dreamcast way back in the day, and I watched him play a little bit of that, and I was like a little kid, so I don't really remember anything of it. But that's technically the first Dreamcast game, or the first Resident Evil game I've ever owned, and the first one I've ever seen.
Okay, well, if we're tossing down true confessions here, my real introduction to Resident Evil was the PC demo of Resident Evil 3. I think it was Resident Evil 3 where like you start off as because I think you're Jill. But for some reason I think in the demo you're wearing the Resident Evil 2 outfit. I could be misremembering because this was like before Resident Evil 2 even came out, so I was pretty young. But I do remember it being there's fire everywhere and zombies and you're outside, and I'm pretty sure you're playing like classic looking Jill, which they might have done for the demo, right? But that was my introduction to it. But yeah, Code Veronica, I was super into it, and I think it's because Code Veronica to me it does feel like 3, and I think like how it feels like the true 3, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like an evolution.
Yeah, because you're continuing as one of the characters in the last game, right? So you're continuing to play as Claire, who I think is an even better character in this game.
Yeah.
But then also it takes you to a number of new environments. Like you start off on an island, and then I think you go to the Arctic at some point.
Man, I can't remember.
You go somewhere cold.
You go to a few different places, but I mean,
yeah,
is what sticks out to me. 2 things that stick out to me about this game. One, it's insanely long for a Resident Evil game. Like, it just goes on forever because you play like basically the 2 characters instead of being able to switch at the beginning. You go like both characters back to back as the same story. And 2, the knife is way overpowered in this game, and I love it. It wrecks, dude.
Yeah, and it had some, and also like I felt like it had a nice progression of different weapons. I think what's the other guy's name? Steve that you play?
I thought it was Steve. Chris. Was it not Chris?
I think you can play as Steve, can't you?
Let me bring up Google. I don't even know who Steve is, but let me bring up the Google.
He's the guy. He's like the prisoner.
Like the prisoner
that you
at the
find
very
on
beginning?
the island. Yeah, and he's got like a goofy voice, and that is the one thing I should say is that the voice acting in Veronica is pretty bad.
The story's nuts, if I remember correctly. Like, it just goes insane.
Yeah, it is really crazy.
The villain was just like crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can play him because he can dual wield some weapons, which I thought was a nice change of pace.
Okay.
Like he could hold like 2 Uzis or pistols or whatever, so you can aim at like multiple enemies, which is a nice like It was a nice change of pace.
Well, I think that might be bonus stuff because I'm looking at the Wikipedia is like the second half of the game is Chris and then the first half is Claire. But I wouldn't be surprised if you kind of like play as other, like you unlock other characters.
Maybe I'm completely misremembering it, but
I mean, I don't know. Like, it might just be like bonus characters that you can unlock. I never really unlocked anything.
But you're right. It is a pretty like crazy, like wacky story, and I the enemy is like I love him. He's so camp.
Yeah, I don't remember much about him. I just remember he was nuts.
Yeah, and he just had like the super high voice and would laugh at you.
Yeah,
it's like super bizarre, and he was kind of like to me, he kind of like he gave me the vibes of like if he got really old, could be like. He could turn into like a Spencer. I think Spencer's the guy who made the first mansion, right? Something Spencer. I could be misremembering.
I'm not super up on my Resident Evil lore.
Oh, neither am I. This is just like that. Just came out of like the recesses of my memory.
That does sound familiar, though. The name Spencer.
But I feel like if he were to get older, he would like he could be like an architect for like a crazy mansion, right? Like because he had like this like Victorian kind of like. I think he like wore like this weird like Civil War clothing, and
I don't know why I haven't looked up an image of him right now. I need to get him in my brain here.
I just remember him being like super camp.
Do you remember his name?
And over the top, and he was a lot of fun. Like I liked having him as an enemy. He was silly, but
Alfred Ashford. God, what a name!
Yes. The proud Ashford family.
Yeah, this
name.
Real pale, kind of twiggy looking dude.
Yeah,
he's got like pressed pants. He wears like this. He's got slick.
Yeah, like he's he's almost like he's like a lord, right? Like he seems like some sort of royalty, or he thinks he is.
Dude, what is with Resident Evil villains and like slicked back hair? It's like you can't be a bad dude in Resident Evil unless you slick back your hair.
Yeah, he was fun. I think he's a fun enemy, like because in I guess a lot of other games you don't really have like in 1 and 2 and 3, there's no like boss controlling everything, right? Like you have Nemesis and Mr. X, but they're puppets of I guess Umbrella. Like Umbrella is quote unquote the enemy, but I feel like in Resident Evil Code Veronica, like Albert was kind of the first like traditional kind of boss that you're against. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like he was very actively trying to stop you, like personally.
Yeah,
you know, and was kind of having fun doing it.
Yeah, that's true. Like he's very he's very present.
Yes,
in a way that Wesker just hadn't been up at that point.
Yeah, and Wesker is I mean, he's a bad guy, but like Albert was like pretty certifiably insane.
Yeah.
So that added to it as well. And I think one of my favorite aspects of playing Code Veronica was, I mean, on the Dreamcast, was that you have your little health bar on the VMU. It's kind of impractical.
I don't think I thought it was a game with a VMU when I played it. Guess I should.
So how did you save?
Well, I mean, I have a memory card, but I had a like you can get memory cards that don't have like the screen on them.
Right.
So mine didn't have a screen on it when I played it.
Oh, so yeah, like the little, not a health bar, but your health status, where it looks like it's like your heartbeat, like on a heart rate monitor, like at a hospital or something.
Oh, that's cool.
So usually in the other games, like you have to pause to look at your own health, right? But in this game, it's on the VMU, so you can kind of tell like what your health is.
It's kind of
which is what. Yeah, it was a neat aspect. Like sometimes you're still like, oh, I don't actually know how healthy I actually am, because there's no color on it, so it doesn't show that it's red. But you can. I don't know. It was a kind of a neat. It's kind of gimmicky, but I enjoyed that.
Well, that's the name of the game when it comes to the Dreamcast, man.
Yeah. And actually, like I'm remembering now when we're talking about Albert. Back on, this is kind of off topic, but back on Newgrounds, there was this person that made videos, I think called Legendary Frog, and he had like a video where he just like would make fun of Code Veronica, and I kind of want to watch it now. I'm sure it's so cringe and so bad, but because it was probably like it's like 15 years old Flash humor. But I don't know. I'm gonna look it up after we're done talking and see how
Yeah, I wouldn't mind
that.
seeing that.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just really like Code Veronica. It's probably one of my favorites, and I think it's like, it definitely felt like an evolution without going too far.
Yeah, I remember when I finished it,
rails.
I was definitely like, you know what? I think that was one of my favorite ones so far in the marathon. So it was pretty good. I want to play it again soon.
Yeah. And I think because that's the end of the classic, quote unquote.
Nope.
I mean, there is Zero, which is... You going to put Zero in there?
Well, to me, Zero is definitely a classic. But if we're going in release order, the next one would be Resident Evil Gaiden.
Yeah. So I haven't played that one.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Well, what did you...
God, you know what? I'm being harsh. It's not that. It's pretty cool for a Game Boy game. You get to play as my boy Barry. Dude, there's some sicko like cutscenes in that game with Barry. I don't know if you've seen my Steam profile picture.
Nope.
Oh my god, let me pull this up. I don't know if you're gonna splice this into the video, but you got to see this. There's just like some really crazy like cutscenes because you play as it's Leon and Barry this time around, and they're on like a ship, and you know like it had some interesting sort of like combat with the zombies, but like for a Game Boy game, not too bad. But man, it's just such a crazy game. Let me get this.
I got nothing to add. I know it exists. It's about it.
This is not the best quality here, but like this is my favorite shot from the game. Yeah, we don't got to drown on this one, but I did want to bring up that it exists and just let everyone know that I have beaten it. Granted, I'll confess, at the end, I did have to use, I think, a save state because I was not about to like... You had to like aim your shots perfectly, and I was real tight on bullets because by the end I just did not care enough to manage my inventory properly, and I just wanted to get the game over with, so I used like one save state to like not have to reload and get the most accurate shots. But other than that, with that one caveat, I beat the game.
All right. Well, I still think that's I mean, I don't know if Zero's kind of in a weird spot. I don't know if I put it at classic or not.
You see, I would. Depend like classic in terms of I feel like it's a classic survival horror game in a way that 4 upward aren't, with like the exception of maybe like 2 remake. But like, you know, 4 started the whole thing where like
we'll get to that later.
Yeah. I'm just saying like 3 was the last of that gameplay style that the classics really like were presenting, you know.
Yeah, and I think Veronica kind of I don't want to say perfected it, but it was definitely an evolution. Mm-hmm. And like 0, I think I played pretty late. And I remember not being crazy about it at the time. I haven't played it like since it came out.
It's okay.
I think I liked how you could like have multiple characters because you can switch from the 2 different characters. Mm-hmm. So I guess for those who don't know it, it's I guess a prequel to Resident Evil 1.
Yeah.
Where you play
Rebecca and Carlos.
Yeah, Rebecca Chambers.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Rebecca Chambers, who is a medic. Who I think you do actually run into her in the first game. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, you might.
And she's a young medic, and then you run into some other guy who's a prisoner.
Yeah.
And
Carlos.
but you investigate a train for a lot of it, mm-hmm. which was an interesting set piece. But I mean, like it was interesting because you could have both of the characters on the screen at the same time, so you'd have like backup to
you can swap
monsters.
Between them. Rebecca was like kind of your healer. Carlos was kind of your muscle.
Yeah, and that also added to the like puzzle aspect where you'd be like, oh, I have to push this block, or you hold this button, and then I'm gonna walk over there, and then switch characters, and then hold this other button.
Open them up for some unique things. Yeah, I don't remember Zero really doing any super big evolutions. One thing they added that would be, I think, most notable that I remember is you can drop items anywhere, and I gotta say, I really don't dig it. And it's
dropping items.
Yeah, I don't like dropping items anywhere because here's the thing, man. I play, like I said, I play like on the hardest difficulty, but what that means is I'm always trying to play as like effectively as I can. And when you give me the ability to drop items everywhere, I'm micromanaging so hard to the point where it's just not even fun anymore. So the fact that like you can't do that in the other games kind of protects me from my own gameplay style. So I didn't really think it was necessary.
I don't think it's a great aspect. I get what they were going for,
Mm-hmm.
but it requires you to remember where all the stuff is.
Yeah, like you got stuff scattered everywhere. Like it's annoying because like you said, like if you're gonna do that, just give me an unlimited inventory. Because what I'm gonna do is pick up everything, drop it off in the room where the boss is or where I want to go or whatever, and pick up everything else. And sometimes you don't even need to do that, but you just don't know because like maybe you're gearing up for what you think might be a boss, but it's not, or maybe you think a door is going to lock but it doesn't, and it just wastes so much time for no reason if you're really trying to play like effectively.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I do have to say that I kind of want to replay it now. Now, like the more I think about it, like the less I remember, but also it is another like very good looking game from what I
Oh yeah, it looks great. You know, it wasn't bad. Like it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I just wasn't ready for it, like when I played it at the time. Just sometimes you play a game and you can tell that you didn't play it at the right time. Like, as an example, like I'm not that big of a fan of Super Mario Galaxy 2, but I think it's because I played it right after I played 1, and I kind of like got tired of it halfway through. But if I would have played it later, then I probably would have been like as stoked about it as most people are, because most people really enjoy Galaxy 2, but... that's another topic for another day. But I think that kind of wraps up. Unless you have anything else to say about Resident Evil 0, I think that kind of wraps up the classic, quote unquote, before the big change.
Pretty much. Unless you want to get into Outbreak, which I've never played.
Nope, I don't.
Yeah, few of the games that two of the Resident Evil games that I have not played. Of the very few that I have not played. But
we'll see if we have time to talk about it at the end. But
I don't have anything to say.
I think we'll wrap up this section, and we'll pick this up in another video. We'll talk about the other games that we've played. So for now, I will just say thank you for those of you who listened to this. Let us know what you thought about the video and bringing back the series, and what you think about Resident Evil in general. If you disagree with anything we said, just post some comments, because you know what, that's honestly one of the best parts of YouTube is interacting in the comments and having a discussion. So I hope you enjoyed this. This has been Silver Mongoose Videos, and remember, classic gaming never gets old.